This is a character from my one-man show, Forever Intertwined. His name is Abe, and he's a Holocaust survivor. And in this excerpt, he's telling his story of his time in the Holocaust. So you want to hear my Holocaust story. Everyone wants to hear stories of the Holocaust. We may be married to life, but death is our favorite mistress. I was born in a small town outside Berlin. You've never heard of it. Most Berliners have never heard of it. My father was a doctor. We were Jewish, but we weren't religious. We were too sophisticated for that. And now I'm going to disappoint you. You want to hear how a close family met adversity with love, but we weren't a close family. My mother and father argued bitterly. Oh, don't get me wrong, they loved each other, but I don't think they liked each other very much. My brother Wilhelm was older than I. We got along, but we weren't close. My sister Sarah, she and I were close. We did everything together. Anyways, the day came when the Nazis told us we had to leave our homes and board the trains. I would love to tell you that it was then that my parents' love shone through, but I'd be lying. Even on the train to Auschwitz, all they could do was scream at each other. I do not know when or how my parents died exactly, but I do know about the deaths of Wilhelm and mine Sarah. I heard about Wilhelm's death shortly after it happened. He was on a work detail. On the detail was an old man. I've never been able to learn his name. The old man was weak, sick. He could no longer work. Some Nazi pig told him he had to keep working or he'd be shot. Wilhelm looked at the Nazi and said, "You wouldn't shoot an old man in cold blood." To prove Wilhelm wrong, he shot the old man dead then and there. Then he turns the gun onto my brother. But he didn't kill him right away. First he shot him in the left shoulder, then the right. Then he shot him in the left leg, then the right. Only then, when Wilhelm was on the ground in pain, did he shoot him in the head. The person who told me about this said that he felt jealous of Wilhelm and the old man. They are free now, he said. That was how people thought, you understand. Sarah lived longer. She died in 1944. In 1942, Sarah began the transition from girl to woman. One of the guards, he noticed her. He made her his personal servant. He had her entertain his friends. I knew this was going on, but there was nothing I could do about it. I myself had grown weaker, more emaciated. One day, this unspeakable man, he comes to me. He tells me in graphic detail what he does to my sister, what his friends do. I wanted to kill him. I wanted to break his neck with my bare hands. He knew this. I think he wanted me to try. He wanted to shoot me as I lunged. But my body betrayed me. Instead of attacking him, I was so weak that I fell to the ground and cried. It may have saved my life. The sight of this sick, weak Jew crying over his raped sister was intensely funny to this animal. Every day until June 17th, 1944, he would continue to tell me stories of my sister's degradation, and I could only cry to the internal amusement of him and the guards. And then, on June 17th, 1944, he told me how my sister, my beautiful Sarah, how she had lost all her teeth and her hair had been cut off. Then he told me she was no longer amusing to them. She had been sent to the gas chambers. My sister's body was dead. I believe her soul died much earlier. And I would have died too. I would have died too had I not met mine Bella. Bella was an only child whose father had died years before the Nazis came to power. Like mine sister, she too attracted the lust of a Nazi guard. But unlike Sarah, her guard wanted her to retain her beauty. He kept her well fed and groomed. She would sneak food to as many of us as she could. Her food kept my body alive. Her compassion kept my soul alive. One day she was sneaking food through a hole between the women's and men's sections, and she asked me if I'd heard news of mine sister. I started to weep, and from her mouth I heard the words, Yiskodal v'Yiskodosh Shemei Rabbah, the opening line of the mourner's prayer in Judaism, the mourner's Kaddish. I was too embarrassed to tell her I didn't know it, so I just kept silent and said Amen whenever she did. After that, we started meeting once a week, but not for what you might be thinking. We met so that she could teach me Judaism. You see, Bella was proud of who she was, a Jew, and she wasn't going to let the Nazis take that away from her, no matter what else they took. She was my first and only Hebrew school teacher. One day she arrived at the meeting and I could see she had been crying. Her Nazi guard had taken her again, and this time he was very rough. But Abe, she said, that is not the worst part. The worst part is I think I'm with child. Bad enough I'll never marry a Jew, but to have to give birth to a Nazi bastard. You will marry a Jew, Bella. One day this war will be over and you'll marry a Jew. After all the things that I have done, who would marry me, Abe? And then I said the line that scared me even more than being in Auschwitz. I said, I would, Bella. I thought she would laugh at me. I thought she would ask, how can a simple, ignorant Jew like me possibly think myself worthy of her? Instead, she smiled a sad smile and said, I love you, Abe. If you were not there, you cannot know how even in hell a rainbow may shine. Bella was pregnant, but her captor forced her to abort the baby. She did not mourn its removal, nor did she cry. To her, it was the removal of a cancer. We continued to meet, but as the Allies came closer, it became harder and harder to meet. And then on January 27th, 1945, I became one of 7,500 prisoners who were liberated by the Russians. I looked for Bella, but I could not find her. I fell into despair, believing she had died. It ended up that she was one of the prisoners who'd been transferred to Bergen-Belsen and had been liberated by the British. She was determined to find me, however, and soon found me in a DP camp. Together, we came to America, and we were never parted again.